This Groundnuts growing training video is brought to you by the Uganda National Groundnut Improvement Project. Groundnuts, also known as peanuts, are highly nutritious legumes grown mainly for their edible seeds, which are consumed not just in Uganda, but all over the globe. They are usually consumed roasted, raw, as a sauce, peanut butter, or confectionery. In Uganda, groundnuts are the second most widely grown legumes after the beans. They are an especially good source of fats, protein, and fiber. Depending on the variety, groundnuts contain between 20 to 50% protein, 40 to 50% oil or fat, and between 10 to 20% carbohydrates, which is good for food or animal feeds. In this video, farmers will learn the proper cultivation techniques and post-harvest practices to get the best out of groundnut growing. Pre-planting or planning. The first step in growing groundnuts is seed selection. Quality groundnut seed is the starting point of any production activity. Farmers should shell groundnuts by hand or using a machine 2 to 3 weeks before the planting. Ensure to sort out shriveled, broken, rotten, or any other seed with impurities. You may also get quality seeds from NARO, which is the National Agriculture Research Organization, private seed companies, or even fellow farmers. Finally, before the planting, treat the seeds with fungicide to prevent molding or inoculant to increase the chances of germination. The second step is land selection. Groundnuts thrive best in areas with moderate rainfall, that is between 450 to 1,500 millimeters of relatively distributed rainfall throughout the year. The optimum temperature for growing this crop is between 25 and 30 degrees Celsius, so avoid extremely cold or hot areas. When it comes to the soil, the best are well-drained sandy loams, or loamy sandy soils with adequate levels of phosphorus, potassium, magnesium, and calcium. It is also important to check the acidity of the soil. Groundnuts grow best in soils with a pH between 5.8 to 6.2. Once the land selection is done, we get to the land preparation. First and foremost, the land should be prepared earlier before the rains start, so that the sowing is done during the rain. Remove any tree stumps, clear the selected land, and plow to a fine tilth to ease sprouting. This may be done using a hand hoe, tractor, or ox plow. For soils in wet, low-lying areas, it is advisable to consider using ridges to prevent waterlogging and to improve weed control and harvesting. Secondly, perform some soil tests to determine fertility. In case of inadequate mineral content, you may apply about 60 kilograms of NPK fertilizer per hectare. These artificial fertilizers can be purchased from your local agriculture center or shop. Planting and management. Now, care must be taken when planting groundnuts. Farmers should ensure to plant groundnuts at a spacing of 35 to 45 centimeters between rows, 7 to 15 centimeters between the seeds in the row, and at a depth of 5 to 6 centimeters. The recommended number of seeds planted per hectare is 100 kilograms for big seeded groundnuts and 80 kilograms per hectare for small seeded groundnuts. Now we get to crop management. Like with other crops, it is important to keep the field weed-free by having 2 to 3 weeding operations, preferably before the flowering stage. Once the crops flower, only carry out weeding by hand to avoid damaging the pegs. Farmers should also regularly scout and control any identified pests or diseases. These may be controlled through planting of resistant varieties, use of culture methods, and finally, use of chemical methods. Harvesting and post-harvest handling techniques. It is important for farmers to harvest groundnuts at the right maturity using the recommended maturity days depending on the variety. This is usually 75 to 110 days after germination. Now, some indicators of maturity include dark markings inside the shell, plump seeds, and the correct variety color development. During the recommended harvest range, determine maturity by sampling about 100 pods from different crops in the garden. Check for the mentioned indicators. If the seeds are indeed mature, harvesting may be done by hoe or by hand pulling. Freshly harvested groundnuts should be cleaned and sorted to remove damaged nuts and other foreign matter. They must be dried as soon as possible to prevent molding and spoilage due to aflatoxin contamination. Farmers should practice fast drying techniques such as drying groundnut on dark-colored tarpaulin, concrete floor, or on locally constructed raised racks. As a general rule, avoid drying the produce in contact with soil. Once dry, we get to the post-harvest storage. Generally, groundnuts may be stored in two forms, either unshelled or shelled. However, the principles of good storage are the same. Storage facilities must be cool and dry, well aerated and free of pests and diseases. The harvested groundnut should be stored on raised pallets in preferably gunny bags, polythene bags or aerated silos. Finally, when farmers start marketing their produce, it is important for them to sell quality groundnuts devoid of damages, impurities, diseases and pests. Remember, good agricultural practices and correct post-harvest practices will ensure quality produce, thereby reducing the bad effects of aflatoxin contamination on groundnuts-based foods and feeds. This video was produced by Acre Consults Limited in collaboration with the National Semi-Arid Resources Research Institute, Nasari.